Welcome to A Day in Her Life. I'm your host, Ellie Rinnick, and I am fascinated by how other women make their days work. On today's episode, Eleanor Leftwich, founder of the Eleanor Leftwich Collection, is joining me to discuss her days. In addition to designing her fashion collection, Eleanor is a mother of 4 kids and also works on the same 4th-generation family farm that she's worked at since she was 14. Eleanor shares how she's not a morning person but prioritizes doing what she doesn't want to do first, including working out, how she and her husband are opposites but that provides balance in their household, and how they're trying to raise functional adults. We talk about the precious time at night when the house is quiet, the importance of female friendships for her sanity, and how she keeps her focus on the next 24 to 36 hours. Eleanor shares how the Eleanor Leftwich Collection came to be, the importance of a uniform, and the value of collaboration over competition. This conversation with Eleanor is such a blast and impossible to distill into a few sentences. Thank you so much, Eleanor, for being a guest on the podcast. This was such a fun conversation. And thank you for making a day in her life a part of a day in your life. I am so thrilled that you're here. If you haven't yet, I would be forever grateful if you would review A Day in Her Life wherever you're listening. This makes a huge difference to the podcast, and it takes a small smidge of a second to do so. Also, please follow us on Instagram at A Day in Her Life Pod or subscribe to our newsletter at adayinherlife.com. This week, I shared 5 things that are making my days warmer, what my menu looked like this week despite it getting off course, the 10 books that I read this month, and what other past guests are doing. I would love for you to follow along. Since we don't have any sponsors on A Day in Her Life, I love to feature an organization doing good. This week, we're featuring Hope Kids in Minnesota. Hope Kids has a vision to restore hope and transform the lives of children with life-threatening medical conditions and their families. Hope Kids provides ongoing events, activities, and a powerful, unique support community for families who have a child with cancer or some other life-threatening medical condition, reminding the children and their families that hope is a powerful medicine. Thank you, Eleanor, for sharing this organization with us. You can learn more about Hope Kids at hopekids.org. And now, let's jump into the episode. Let's have some fun. Welcome to A Day in Her Life podcast. Today, Eleanor Leftwich, founder of the Eleanor Leftwich Collection, is joining me today to discuss her days. Hi, Eleanor. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're so happy that you're here. So let's jump right in. If you wouldn't mind, can you set the scene and fill us in on who you are, where you live, what you do, and what your family looks like?
Yes, definitely. So I live outside of Minneapolis, St. Paul in Minnesota, so Midwestern. I have lived here basically my entire life, and my husband's also from here. In fact, we went to high school together and college, but didn't start dating until college and got married shortly thereafter. We got married in 2007, so 16 years ago, and we have 4 children now. So we have 2 sons and 2 daughters. And they all have birthdays in the next month or so. So they will be 12, 10, and 8. And the youngest one is 6.5. So it is a busy household with children, that's for sure.
Absolutely. We have winter birthdays as well. And it's always the Christmas, Thanksgiving, winter birthday chaos.
Totally. Well,
alive.
We farm, and so I really wanted to have the kids after harvest season. So I was thinking about it. I'm very much a planner, and 3 out of the 4 were born shortly after the harvest season, but I didn't totally give it consideration with Thanksgiving and Christmas. And, it's a very busy 2 months, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Could you tell us a little bit about your family farm and kind of what that looks like, and also about the Eleanor Leftwich Collection?
Yeah, definitely. So my husband is a 4th-generation farmer. It is, at this point, a suburban farm. It's pretty close to the Minneapolis area. We're about, I'd say, 20 minutes outside of it, southwest. And it's a traditional grain operation. So we have field corn, soybeans. We also do your traditional Midwestern crops like pumpkins, apples, squash. We keep bees. We actually started growing hemp after the 2018 Farm Bill made that federally legal. So we're a plant farm. I like to kind of, specify that we don't have livestock. That's not something we have had really since the 60s. And I started working on the farm actually when I was 14 years old as a summer job. So I have worked on the farm now for 26 years. I'm 40 years old. And it's never boring. We wear a lot of different hats. It's a family business. It can be very idyllic being on a farm and working on a farm. But of course, family business can also be complicated and stressful at times too, because the buck really stops with you. But so we do that. And that's been my day job since I graduated college in 2005. And a few years ago, out of just creativity and kind of needing something outside of my career and motherhood, I started taking very random pictures on Instagram under my, pseudonym, Eleanor Leftwich. And it was really just a creative outlet at the time. There was really no rhyme or reason to it. I have loved fashion for a very long time, always been into it. And it was just a creative outlet. And that took off a little over, probably close to 2 years ago now, when an account called Things I Bought and Liked, which I'm sure everyone follows because she's amazing, she tagged my account. And I was not super active on social media. So I had a girlfriend text me late at night and she said, I think you're going viral. All of a sudden you have thousands and thousands of followers. And I thought to myself, how could that be? I'm just a random person in Minnesota posting outfit pictures. And it really kind of blew up overnight. And since then, having this very engaged community, which I'm very grateful for, led me to create the clothing line Eleanor Leftwich Collection. And so that launched last April.
That's awesome. I remember when Things I Bought and Liked posted that your account too. And I think I've been following you since then as well.
Amazing. I'm very grateful for her. And I have reached out and, told her how grateful I am. And she is so gracious and so kind. And I've said, can I send you something? I wouldn't be where I am without you doing that. And she's like, absolutely not. That's not what I do. She stays very true to her core. But I don't actually know her, but from my interactions on Instagram, she's lovely.
And she does have serious power. When she posts something, it sells out.
She does.
Those damn sleep crowns. I tried for months to get myself a sleep crown and I finally got one.
She is. She's got true influence. That's for sure.
So Eleanor, if you wouldn't mind, can we go through your day? So starting with your mornings, can you kind of take us through what your day looks like from wake up on?
Yes. So my day starts, my alarm goes off at 6:30. I definitely hit snooze for as long as possible, but we are up and out of bed by 7 o'clock every morning. My husband sometimes earlier because there may be things that he needs to get to in the field. But for me, I get up, I'm out of bed by 7, and it is getting the kids ready for school. So my oldest is in middle school. He starts school at 8:30 and he's able to ride the bus. But my 3 younger children, they start at 8 and they do not have bus service. So I need to get them up and out the door, which is straight chaos with 4 children. As you can probably imagine, I do not want to sugarcoat it. Our mornings are very hectic. I also want to be very transparent that I'm going to say 95% of the time I drive to school in my robe. I have no shame. I am drinking my coffee, bleary-eyed, my hair's a mess. I'm in my pajamas, in my robe. I mean, the teachers see me every morning. I'm like, yeah, good morning. How are you? Get out of the car, kids, So that is how the morning starts. They are off. Everyone's gone by 8:30. And then I come home, get the house picked up. We're kind of organized. I'm very much a clean freak, which can be difficult with 4 children and a husband. And then my day kind of officially starts once I have everybody up and out of the house. And 2 days a week, I head to the gym, which I hate absolutely with a passion. But I do hate it more when I miss it. So I've realized that about myself, that I just need to get myself to the gym for those 2 days, which is Tuesdays and Thursdays. Otherwise, I generally head to my office here on the farm. And there I generally work until sometime between 3 and 4 o'clock. And that's doing a lot of different things. So I joke with my husband and my brother-in-law, who is involved in the farm as well, that I do everything that the guys can't do. They are nice enough to say it's all the things that they cannot do. I say they don't want to do them. They say they can't do them. And that leads to, staff management, marketing, accounting, tax preparation, seasonal planning, lots of different things that happen here on the farm. We have diversified over the years into other ag-related businesses. So we have other things besides the grain operation that we manage. And have dabbled also in real estate, just again through kind of urban sprawl and population moving closer out into the what was once rural and now suburban. So I wear many different hats. I'm never bored for what I do on the farm, and then generally from there I skip lunch a lot of times, which is not good. I have a terrible sweet tooth, so I will sit and nibble on Sour Patch Kids while I'm sitting staring at my laptop, which I probably shouldn't be saying out loud, but I, again, want to be totally truthful. And then I head home. I'm generally not home past 4 o'clock. I have a wonderful nanny that helps me get the kids from school and, kind of get them organized for the evening with homework and all of that. She leaves by about 4 o'clock, and then I am home with the kids and just, getting to various activities that they are in. And that is generally also when I am working on Eleanor Leftwich Collection. So the afternoons, I try to focus really just on the kids and dinner. And then post dinner, it is a lot of late nights doing Eleanor Leftwich Collection work that just sometimes doesn't get done during the day because of farm work.
Awesome. What does dinner look like in your house?
So my husband cooks. He loves to cook. It's a passion for him. Our kids definitely are not anything other than average when it comes to their eating habits. There might be a day where they all love roast chicken, and then the next day it's like, I don't like that. What are you talking about?
Yep.
And so he does dinner, I would say 95% of the time. The kids joke that if I'm in charge of dinner, we generally go out or order takeout. It's not my strong suit. That is not one thing that I am, one, good at, and two, proficient at all, or that I even enjoy doing. And so he generally cooks dinner, and we do try to have family dinner pretty much every night, unless there is an activity that we have, whether it's sports or extracurriculars. We sit down every night. Sometimes it's just at our kitchen bar, at our kitchen counter. Other times it's in our dining room. And it's pretty much straight chaos with 4 kids, but everybody talks about their day. Sometimes there's fighting, mom and dad are having to referee. So very much an average evening for dinner. But yes, my husband is the cook of the household, and he's very good at it. Thank God.
We all have our strengths.
Exactly.
And then when you're working into the night, what time is your typical bedtime, and what does your routine look like if you have one?
So the kids go to bed. I'm kind of a stickler on bedtime. So the kids are generally in bed by about 7:30 to 8 o'clock, and not necessarily asleep, but they're having quiet time, doing reading, whatever they might be doing. The boys share a room and the girls share a room. So there's definitely some chitter chatter that happens for a little while, but the house is generally pretty quiet, no later than 8 o'clock. And then from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I am doing all sorts of different things. So I might be making product pages for my website. I may be ordering fabric. I may be emailing my mills in Italy, which actually works quite well because when I'm working late into the evening, they're just waking up with the time difference. So it's quite nice that way. My web developer also is a mother. I'd be remiss not to give her a shout out, and that's Hannah Seabrook from Gadabout Creative. She's got 2 young children. So we text late into the evening without, either of us feeling guilty about it, because it's just, the time that we're getting that work done. And so those 2 hours is generally, can be a variety of different things. And, it might be finalizing collection, maybe packing orders. When I pack orders, again, it's really just me. My mom helps me. My husband helps me. Even my kids put the boxes together. So we are not this big operation over here whatsoever. Everybody pitches in. And we'll do that a lot of times in the afternoon. But things that I really need to focus on and not have interruption generally happens between, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and anywhere between 10 and 10:30. I try to be in bed between 10:30 and 11. I have to say that my favorite part of the day is the evening when everyone's asleep.
know.
And I think most mothers would tell you that. And, it was kind of ironic, which I think so many, idiosyncrasies of our own mothers really start to make sense when you have your own children.
Mm-hmm.
But I can remember being young and, my mom sometimes being tired at night or tired the next morning, excuse me. And I'd say, Mom, go to bed earlier, like just go to bed. And she'd be like, well, it's, I like to stay up and everyone's sleeping and the house is so cozy. And really what she wasn't saying, which I will definitely say, is no one needs me. That's the only part of the day that my name is not being said in some capacity. And it is really the best feeling to have all of your loved ones in a safe place. They're sleeping, you know where they are, but they don't need you, which is lovely. And so at that point, sometimes I'll sneak in a bath. Sometimes I'll just get in bed and read a book or watch a show. But I will say that that is for sure my favorite part of the day. And I tend to stay up later than I probably should to soak in that quiet time, because there's just not that many points of the day that's quiet. And I think most moms would tell you that, or parents in general, but for sure mothers.
I absolutely would have the exact same debate of like, I want to do some quiet time by myself, but I really want to sleep. And I'm always like, I should have gone to bed earlier. But at the same time, I did enjoy my reading time.
Yes. So that's why I set my alarm for 6:30 and I don't get up till 7. I need that extra 30 minutes every day.
Absolutely. Speaking about your mornings or thinking about your mornings, is there anything that you do to prep for that like hour of between 7 and 8 that's kind of chaotic getting the kids out of the house? Is there anything you do to prep like lunches or breakfast or anything like that?
Yes. So the kids are, I'd say, pretty self-sufficient, which is great. And that is purposeful. I'm a big believer in there's 4 of you. You have to figure some of this out. And my biggest goal is to have functioning adults, to be raising functional adults. And so they manage breakfast pretty much on their own, but anything that needs to be done the night before is done the night before. And my husband always calls us yin and yang, because while our personalities can be similar in a lot of ways, we're also incredibly different. And one way that we're incredibly different is he is very much a morning person and I am not. I'm a night person, whereas, it's rare that he's awake past 9 o'clock at night. I mean, he is, and then that's the farmer in him, that's how he was raised. It was, you're up at the crack of dawn, literally, and you go to bed when it's dark. And that has, still him as an adult. And so he's very much good about getting up and getting any sort of breakfast started and making sure that everyone's moving and grooving. Whereas I'm up late at night making sure lunches are packed, the backpacks are good to go. Everyone's got their school iPad charged for overnight. Even though they're supposed to do that on their own, I double check it. And so I like to be organized at night for the next day. I go to bed, the kitchen is clean, the dishwashers are running. Otherwise, I just can't go to sleep, which I know probably sounds too OCD for a mother of 4 children. But it's just kind of helps me keep me sane. And so, yes, we go to bed, I'd say very often, pretty organized for the next day to help start the day off on the right foot. Doesn't always happen, it's not 100%, but for the most part, we try our best.
I love that. And I also love the biggest goal of raising functional adults. My parents always said that to me as a kid, is like, we're trying to raise you to like leave us. And it's so true.
Yeah. It's hard to think of, but it'll come fast. And
yeah, life comes at you quick.
Yes, I'm not going to be excited when the kids, leave the nest, so to speak. But I also want to make sure they're prepared. So yes, that's a big, big component for me.
When you think about your work and how you structure your work during the day, both for the farm and for Eleanor Leftwich Collection, is there any structure to how you plan your work in a given day, like certain types of work earlier on in the day and a certain type later on? How do you think about that for yourself?
So for me, I try to generally do what I don't want to do in the morning, which is why I go to the gym right away in the morning because I know otherwise I will not go. But I do all of the accounting for our businesses, which is my least favorite job. I shouldn't say least favorite. It's the most boring part of my job. I like that everything generally reconciles with a nice, pretty bow. I'm kind of
Hmm.
a math nerd, so that always gives me a sense of satisfaction when I can get everything reconciled appropriately. And so I try to do that right away in the morning. But, the days are all different yet the same, which I'm not sure if that makes total sense, but there might be some days where I have a lot of meetings or I have a lot of Zoom calls, and then there might be some days that I don't have any. And I try to keep Fridays totally open, either for things that are fun because everybody needs those, distractions or things, that are a little bit outside of the ordinary, whether it's lunch with girlfriends or, a self-care appointment or something like that. Otherwise, I like to try to have Fridays just for Eleanor Leftwich Collection. And so that I can have a full day, to do things that aren't necessarily farm related at least one day during the week. That doesn't always happen, especially, being in farming, it's very seasonal. So having Fridays open is much easier in January, February, and March when it's cold and there's nothing growing. It's basically impossible September and October when we're working, 7 days a week, 14, 16 hours a day. But I do my best at it. But yeah, so anything that I am not looking forward to, I try to do kind of right away in the morning, get it done with.
I tend to hide from it sometimes, so I need to
Yes,
adopt that a little bit.
that's totally a personality trait. I'm also that geek that will write something down that I've already completed just for
Hmm.
the
Oh,
satisfaction of crossing off the to-do list. I love to-do lists. I love crossing things off. Yes, there you go. Exactly. I love it. We are the same.
speaking of to-do lists, how do you stay organized? So, what are some digital or analog tools that you use both for work or for your family to keep you guys organized?
So this comes back to my yin and yang with my husband. My husband is not organized. He flies by the seat of his pants. I sometimes, kind of give him a hard time of I've got 200 different tabs open in my brain and you have like three and this isn't working, this is not working. He's tried to get better about that, but I am very much type A, very much a perfectionist. um, it's not necessarily my best quality, so I have had to loosen that up a little bit just by default of having four children. But I'm going to say within the last couple of years finally moved everything over to my iPhone calendar, which very slow on the bandwagon on that. I had a paper planner that I carried everywhere with me. I mean, it was like a security blanket, basically. It was my planner. Everything was in there. My whole life was in there. And my sister, who's younger than me by almost 3 years, was like, "This is ridiculous. You always have your phone. People can make, meetings with you and whatever. They just give you a meeting request." I mean, I was so naive as to the benefits of the Apple Calendar. So now everything is on there. I I do for my own sanity. I really try not to look too far ahead. I can definitely fall into a pattern of being a stressful, having a lot of stress. And one way that I've done my best to manage that is I really try to not look at anything past tomorrow. So, tonight before I go to bed, one of my habits is I look at the following day and I make sure that I haven't forgotten anything. Everything is set to go. You know, my son has his violin for orchestra practice, etc., things like that. And that has helped my stress level come down significantly because I sometimes got in the habit of looking too far ahead and, having it feel overwhelming. And so now I really try to only go out 24 to 36 hours for the most part. Sometimes that leads to challenges. It's like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I need childcare and I don't have it and I got to figure it out, but it always works itself out. I think there's more positives to it than negatives.
Absolutely. How do you make time for creativity in your day?
Late at night. And anyone who follows me on Instagram will likely notice a pattern that I am most active on social media late at night. And I think too, that's a lot of people in my community. I mean, I don't want to assume that I know everyone because I don't, but it seems that my average, I hate the word follower because that's not how I really see it. I really see it as like this engaged group of people, which I love, and I've really built so many friendships over it, which also sounds kind of weird, but it's true. It's a lot of women who wear a lot of different hats, and they're like me, finally having a moment to themselves later in the evening. And, they're going on Instagram for a distraction or, a moment of peace or to see what so and so is doing or wearing or etc. And so that creativity is really generally late at night. And I would say too, without sounding too, I'm going to say frou-frou, I love getting dressed. That in the morning when I am getting dressed, I very much believe in a uniform, which I talk a lot about on Instagram. I have a uniform. Like today, I'm repeating an outfit from a couple days ago because honestly, it was laying on my bench in my closet and I just threw it on. But I like to be able to go to high quality classic pieces that I can wear for years and years and years and have a very put together look that, I can edit a little bit to make it different. But I'd say getting dressed every day is a point of creativity for me. And then late at night, sharing what I'm shopping or what I'm finding or behind the scenes of my collection. I always want to be very supportive of other small businesses and other designers, just because I'm now in this space has not taken away whatsoever, supporting other people in the industry. I'm very, very big on collaboration over competition because I just think that when we all do better, we all do better. And that's something, I'm not going to get into politics, but that's even how I feel just kind of in general with people. So always kind of wanting to lend a helping hand when I can and use the platform to do so is important because otherwise, it's not social media without the social aspect.
Absolutely. I love that. You mentioned your uniform. Can you tell us a little bit about what your current uniform is looking like for those who
Yeah.
can't see you chatting with you today?
Yeah, definitely. So my uniform changes seasonally because I'm from the Midwest. We obviously
Seasons
have
hit hard.
yeah, that is one way to put it. Seasons do hit hard for sure. We have extremes here in Minnesota, but right now in the fall, my uniform generally is, some type of sweater and jeans or a turtleneck and a blazer. So like right now I've got just a cotton turtleneck on from J. Crew and then kind of a big cardigan. Actually, that was men's Banana Republic, which sounds also random, but that's also very much how I design. When people ask me, how do you design or how do you think of these things? Frankly, I'm designing for myself. And I don't want that to come across as selfish. It's just, I really want to help people find a uniform that they feel confident in, but that doesn't make them have to think about it too much. That's the whole point of finding a uniform. And so when I find something that I feel good in, I will buy it in multiple colors. I will buy it in multiple styles. If you looked into my closet, it's like my Eleanor shirt that I made. It's a collared button down shirt. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just a basic shirt. However, it's super high quality cotton. We have really thought through where the button should be placed because I'm a little bit busty and it drives me bananas when a button is pulling. It just drives me crazy. And so it has these very thoughtful details that make it a more special and a more elevated piece. But it is a shirt that I wear under sweaters. It's a shirt that I wear with shorts. It's a shirt that I wear with denim. It's a shirt that I wear under blazers, And so I have a shirt that I can wear 25 different ways and that I know, the production is all in Chicago. Domestic production is very important to me because I think those items last longer. And, everybody wants to talk about sustainability, but there's nothing more sustainable than supporting your local citizens in manufacturing. And that's not always easy. And, I don't want to brush over that pushes the price up. It's not as affordable. And there's those components to be considered. But, I know that what I'm designing and putting out, I will have for 20 years. I will pass down to my daughters. And that's important to me. It's not necessarily important to everybody, and I totally recognize that. But it is important enough for me to be designing with that in mind. So, and the other thing too is I want everything to be styled lots of different ways. And that's another, I made a dress for holiday with feather detail. And again, I have a lot of feathered pieces because I love feathers and accoutrements that make a garment special, but I don't always want to wear them. I don't have a fancy lifestyle that requires feathers all the time. So I want to have those, I really want to bring the cost per wear down on any item that I'm designing and selling to my clients. So that's another important component. I hope I answered that okay.
No, you did. And I love that. I think that thinking about the cost per wear and kind of how versatile and many times you'll wear something when I'm thinking about investment pieces is something important to me as well.
Totally. Quality over quantity. That's something my mother taught me from a young age.
When you think about your days and your weeks, how do you make time for your relationships with your friends? How do you nurture those as in this stage of your life?
Yeah. So female friendships specifically, I think are so important, especially in motherhood. I have a couple different group of girlfriends who we have lunch at minimum once a month. And we do lunch because we're all so tired in the evening and we don't want to have to worry about childcare. And, I don't want to say all husbands are the same because I just watched the David Beckham documentary and he's super clean. I was like, oh my gosh, this exists? Who is this person?
Trimming the wicks. I was
Yes.
dying.
Yes. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is gold. I mean, goals on so many levels, but like the OCD-ness was gold. That is not my husband. And I love him dearly, dearly. But sometimes when I go out in the evening, I come home to a house that looks like a bomb went off. The kids aren't asleep, and again, that's my personal experience, not everybody's. But for my girlfriends, it's similar. And so we do lunch because the kids are in school. It's easier to get away. You don't have to worry about the kids. And, it's such a nice, my friendships very much are, decades long, first of all, which I think, I'm 40, so I don't think that's uncommon, but it's this camaraderie of not being alone, and marriage is so important and it's so important to raising children. But when you are in the throes of motherhood, and again, specifically to me, my husband is never going to understand exactly what motherhood looks like and the physicality that it requires and the fact that you have, and again, don't get me wrong, but like I have this piece of my heart walking out in the world every day. And, my husband tells me all the time, you need to not worry so much. Like they're going to be fine. The kids are going to be fine, which I need, I need that reminder. But men just, I think of parenthood a little bit differently than women do. And so to nurture those female friendships, especially, always, but especially when you're in motherhood and even marriage, marriage is hard. I'm never one to say it's not. It takes effort and work and all of the things. And again, to like bounce experiences and situations off of your girlfriends that you're going through, and for them to say, oh my gosh, I'm going through the exact same thing, makes you feel not alone and makes you feel like you're not going crazy and that, you're going to get through maybe whatever challenge you're facing that day. Because at the end of the day, life is hard. Life is wonderful, but it's not without its challenges. We all have them, no matter what you see on social media, no matter what, outward portrayal people are trying to give you. We're all clueless at the end. I'm clueless. Everyone I know is clueless. And I want to be friends with the people that admit they're clueless because I'm like, me too. I'm totally with you. So I think female friendships are really crucial. And it's something, that is so important, honestly, to my sanity to have in my life.
Absolutely. And thinking of marriage, how do you and your husband focus on your relationship during a given week or day?
Yeah. So my husband and I are a little bit unique in the fact that we work together and we do very different things on the farm. I will say, interestingly enough, I enjoy working with him a lot, 9 days out of 10 or 28 days out of 30. We are both strategic in different ways. And so that is very enjoyable. It's enjoyable to see a challenge and meet it together and then overcome it together. That's really special. And that's, both in parenthood and for us for work. But we do really try to carve date night out. We used to try to do it once a week. That's gotten harder as the kids have gotten older. And so again, this sounds funny or, whatever, but we now start to try to do lunch or like a very early happy hour. My husband doesn't drink, but I'll have a martini and he'll have an iced tea before the kids get out of school. And so we've now kind of shifted gears into, we don't need this fancy dinner out and we don't need to get all gussied up and go out for the evening. We need to just find these small pockets each week. And it might only be a half an hour, or it might only be 15 minutes, or it might be telling the kids like, hey, you guys can have 30 minutes of screen time. Mom and dad are going to sit on the screen porch and, sit and chit chat and have a cocktail or whatever. And so it's less defined, but we do try to find those little pockets. And it gets easier, to the people listening that kids are not in school yet. You just got to make it to kindergarten. It gets easier, and school is now without its own challenges and emails and activities and everything else. But to, even those that are working to be able to say, okay, well, I've got a lunch break. Let's meet for 30 minutes and get a salad or whatever it is. We do make time for that. And in the evenings as well. I mean, he's very supportive of Eleanor Leftwich Collection. I mean, he would tell you that, between him and my mom, I have two very, very big cheerleaders in my corner. And so that is also helpful that, he's supportive of me working late into the evening when we could be watching a movie or a show or whatever. But I think that support is important. And we've been together for over 20 years. And we've had our challenges. We've done couples counseling and therapy. And I think all that's important. And I think that that's important to be transparent about. I mean, marriage, if you're truly going to make it for a lifetime, you're going to have your ups and downs. And you got to know when you're having a down that you're going to get back to an up. And sometimes you need help to get there. And whether that's support from friends and family or an outside source like a therapist, I think is fantastic. It means you're working for your marriage.
It is hard work.
Very hard work.
Thinking of your days, what is a ball that you let drop or something you're conscious about deprioritizing right now in your life that either you're not choosing and you're choosing to outsource, or something that you're just not choosing to spend the time on at the moment?
So I splurge and have a cleaning service come into my house once a week, which sounds excessive, but it is something that, and this sounds so silly, it is so important to my mental health to have my house organized and clean. My husband would be like, you're crazy. This is not that crucial. Who cares? But it's just kind of, my mom was the same way, and I think passed that down to me a little bit. And so that is something that I am willing to pay for in order to take off my plate. Because I think, juggling all of those balls, sometimes I feel like I'm not prioritizing what I should be, whether it's my marriage or my children or work, in any sort of given order. But it's hard for me to want to drop a ball. And I'm working on that. I will, kind of really kill myself to get everything done in a day, even if it means staying up until 11, midnight, 1 a.m, which again does not give myself, I need to give myself more grace on that because I'm not being the best version of myself. And so that is something that I'm trying to be more comfortable with, of like, okay, I think there's a generation that I'm a part of, and I keep saying my age, but I'm 40. I grew up in a traditional household. My mom did not work until we were in school, and then she went and worked at the school. She's in special ed. So she was always on the same schedule as us, and my dad was in sales. And so I saw a traditional mother and wife doing traditional things. And on the other side of that coin, is both of my parents, my dad's no longer alive, but both of my parents, my whole childhood was like, you can do anything you want to do and you can do it. You're going to go to college and you can major in anything you want to do and you can get any job you want to do. I mean, I thought I was going to be president of the United States until I was 20 years old. That's how much confidence they gave me that I can do anything I set my mind to. And now, as I'm in the throes of parenthood and work and career, there are days where I'm trying to be everything to everyone. And the person really that suffers the most is me in that equation, because I want to be this traditional mother and wife and take care of my home and my children and my husband, but also kill it in the workplace. And I think that's a challenge that, I didn't foresee necessarily, and that's where those balls start to drop of like, okay, well, if my house isn't spotless, it's fine. It doesn't make me any less of a good wife and mother, and on top of it, to my husband, chop, chop, like start picking up. And that kind of goes back to my kids being self-sufficient, is whether it's my son or my daughter, clean your room, get your clothes in the hamper, do all of these things, because we all have to be functioning members of this family and later on functioning members of society. And so, kind of trying to change that a little bit for my kids, of seeing both parents more equally contributing, whether that's in the workplace or whether that's at home. So I hope I answered that. I'm probably rambling.
No, you definitely did. And I think from my perspective, having a house cleaner as well, taking one thing off of the like mental load in a week is something that really can make a huge difference and like open up the ability to have some more creative thought time around other things. So I think whatever you need. I always, when my friends are talking about like how to organize their schedules and stuff, I'm like, whatever you need to do to like free up some time for you to have that time to think about it, rather than this like huge list of things. I've talked a lot with guests on the podcast about chores and responsibilities for children. And I love, I've implemented that. My kid's only 4. He's 4 at this point. And we do a lot of like, your job is to feed the dog. You're like, we all have to clean up afterwards. And my daughter sings the like cleanup song. She's only 2. Or barely 2.
That's amazing.
And it's so important to like start it early and kind of show that in a lot of different ways, and that everyone pitches in regardless of what the traditional dynamics used to be.
Exactly.
What are some hobbies that you have and how do you make time for them?
So I would say my favorite hobby, which is going to sound probably lame, is reading. I love getting into a good book. I have been a bookworm my whole life, ever since I can remember. I've always, read before bed, and it's nothing, I'm not reading to gain knowledge, not reading like, historical novels that are teaching me something, or the political system of Western Europe. Nothing. No, it is fluff. It's straight fluff that I'm reading. And so reading is probably my top hobby. There's very few things I enjoy more when I have true free time to just sit and get really deep into a book. That's my favorite. We love to ski as a family. That's one thing. I really try to support my kids in doing anything that they want to do, but I am nudging them into activities that I foresee as lifetime activities. Mm-hmm. And skiing is one of them. In fact, I probably don't have much time until they're going to leave me way behind on the mountain. And so we ski as a family a lot, and just spending time with friends and family. I'm very close with my sister. I'm very close with my mom. I'm very close with my extended family. And again, I get energy from those relationships. And so I think spending time with friends and family as well. But reading for sure is like my number one. And even better if I'm in the bathtub, like reading in the bath in silence, best. There's nothing better. There's nothing better.
What are you reading right now, or what have you read recently that you've loved?
So I'm reading, I don't know if anybody watched the Poldark series.
Yes, I did.
Oh my God. Okay, yes. So it is also a series of book, and I love series. I love, like Outlander is another. I've read every single book. I read those
too. Yep.
Oh, they're so good. So I love when there are, multiple stories and that they go on to continual books. But right now I'm reading, I don't know if it's the 6th or the 7th, but it's the novel that kind of goes after the series. And I've read most of them. So I'm reading that right now. And I love Ross Poldark. I wish they would bring
Mm-hmm.
back. I like keep being like, come on, PBS, bring it
Yes.
back, bring it back. I don't think it's coming, but that's what I'm reading right now.
Awesome. I'll have to add that to because I read Outlander and I watched all of the series, so I'll have to add that to my
Yes,
list. I'm a
it's
huge reader
good.
as well, so I do a lot of audio right now just because of the phase of my life with the kids. It makes it easy for me to put something in while I'm making dinner or something.
Yeah.
But I'm
It's
always
such
looking
an
for something.
escape.
Oh, totally.
There's nothing that clears my head better than a book. Nothing clears my head
Yeah,
like a book.
absolutely. And my husband's not a reader, and I keep trying to like get him into reading. And I'm like, I read this great
Yeah.
book. I think you would like it. And I'm like, just
Yeah.
keep trying. One day it'll sink.
Yeah. My husband is the same. He's like, if I lay down, I'm falling asleep. And I'm like, well, that is also a very special talent. I cannot do that. I wish I could.
I'm so excited for I'm sure you've seen this with your kids if you've been a long time reader. I love like watching my kids get excited about the books that I used to love. And my
Yes.
son is like he's getting close to being able to read like that, getting interested in wanting to read. And I like
Yeah.
can't wait for him to read like Harry Potter and like all of the books that
Yes.
I read as a kid.
Totally. 100%.
Eleanor, what is something that you wish were different in your days? Something that if you could choose and have something slightly different, what is something that you might choose to be slightly different?
I would love for each day to have 8 more hours in it. And that's like a big change. But right now, again, to be totally honest, do not feel like there are enough hours in the day with everything that I am trying to do. And again, I'm working on attempting to give myself a little bit more grace. It's not something I'm great at. And we were talking about it a little bit before we were recording. I am guilty of always wanting more, to hit that next benchmark, to meet that next goal, to overcome that challenge, that sometimes I'm guilty of not recognizing, the goals that I've met and the challenges that I've already overcome. It's kind of like, well, yeah, that's done. On to the next thing. And so I'm working on that, but I do wish that there was a little bit more time in the day. And I'm sure I would fill it with a bunch of baloney. I mean, let's be real. I'm sure I would find more work to do or, things like that. But I do wish there was a little bit more time in the day for quiet. I recently read something that I would be considered an extroverted introvert. So I'm very comfortable being social. I'm very comfortable in social settings. I don't get nervous about that type of thing. So like I don't get nervous to do a podcast or things like that. It doesn't bother me. But I really recharge my battery by quiet and alone time and things like that. And that's where I kind of re-energize for the next day or for the next challenge that might come my way. And so I wish right now there was a little bit more time for that. And my mom keeps reminding me, you're going to miss these days. My house is chaos. We've had 4 things break in the last week, and not like little things, like a lamp got shattered and a cabinet came old. It's been a very chaotic week. And my mom would be like, you're going to miss this. And I just want to look at her and be like, am I going to miss this, Mom? Because a quiet household sounds really great right now. And I know she's right. I know that I'm going to miss, the fingerprints on the glass and, the fridge left hanging open. I mean, maybe not that, but I try to remind myself of that. But I do wish there was a little bit more time for solitude.
As an introverted extrovert, extroverted introvert, I can understand that as well. I used to travel a ton for work, and like you're on the entire time that you're in front of the client, and I would just get back to my hotel room and like and you need that recharge like hour of silence to get yourself back into the moment. So I totally understand that. As an entrepreneur and businesswoman for the farm as well, how have you found a peer group of women, or who do you go to for career advice or for input when you're making decisions?
Yeah. So, there's not a lot of women in agriculture there's not none, but there's not that many women in agriculture, but we do have a good community here in Minnesota of just people we've done business with for a very long time. So for farming, there's a great group. I think for, Eleanor Leftwich Collection, I am very fortunate to not only have friends that are in the industry that were very open and transparent with me and willing to lend a helping hand. I have a girlfriend who her and her sister and her mom run a company called ABLE. And all three of them are amazing, but like she connected me with a woman in Pennsylvania who does some of the work that they need done, who wasn't able to help me in the way that I needed, but then connected me with my production team in Chicago. And so the whole success of Eleanor Leftwich Collection is really built on those relationships. I was introduced to the Italian mills that I'm working with right now by a friend in New York that I shopped with. She's a designer and I've shopped with her and mentioned her on Instagram just because I love what she's doing and I think it's super cool. And she was like, let me introduce you to the people that I work with. And so my success is really based on other people's success and then willing to be helpful. And so that's something, that when someone reaches out and says, oh, can I, ask you some questions? I always preface it with, I'm not sure I know, but I'll tell you everything I do know. I might not be exactly the person that has all the answers because I'm not. None of us are. But I'll do and tell you whatever it is that I know in order to help you. And that kind of goes back to collaboration again over competition. I have reached out to people and they will say, oh, I can't help you, or, oh, I'm not going to give you that information, or, oh, that's proprietary. And so not everybody has the same attitude, but I do think at the end of the day, the reason that people shop with me and enjoy the content that I share on Instagram is that it is genuinely built out of passion. And I think that comes across. This isn't just work for me. It's not just a business. It's not just, looking at my profit margins. It's really something that I love to do. And I love connecting with people that have, a passion. It doesn't have to be my passion, but just any passion, and lending a hand if I can.
I love that. And you were so graceful to come on the podcast and share your days with us.
Yeah, totally. I hope that it's interesting enough for people to listen to. My day they're probably like, oh my gosh, this woman is,
I love hearing about everyone's days, and I know that our listeners do too. So Eleanor, where can people learn more about you and follow you?
Yes. So I have 2 Instagram accounts, actually 3, but 2 that actually matter. My first is my main one, Eleanor Leftwich, which shares all sorts of content of, from what I'm wearing to behind the scenes of my day to other, brands and designers that I'm loving and shopping. I have my formal Eleanor Leftwich Collection page, which is where everything collection related lives. And you'll be able to see like the professional images on beautiful models and, influencers and friends and family that are wearing it. And then I actually have a resale page that I sell my own closet items out of, which is Eleanor Leftwich Closet, which again, very big on, I'm a big consignment and resale shopper. I've loved it for eons and eons. And so I love seeing, garments that maybe don't fit me anymore, or aren't quite right, live another life with someone else. So 3 different things. And then my website is shop.eleanorleftwich.com, which is where you can find all things collection.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Eleanor, what is your favorite part of a day in your life?
Probably at night when everyone is sleeping. I say I'm not overly religious in the traditional sense, but I say a little prayer of gratitude for my health and my family's health and my children and my marriage and my extended family and all my friendships, which sounds corny, but it's true. I think gratitude is very important. And the house is quiet and, I might pour myself a glass of wine, get into bed to watch, some show on Netflix or read a book. And that is definitely my favorite part of the day.
I love that. You've painted a perfect picture of an evening of solitude.
Definitely. Definitely.
Well, Eleanor, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. It was so nice to meet you and hear about your days.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.